Well, Stephanie, it's so good to talk to you. I'm really excited. I know a lot of people are going to be excited to hear about what you're doing. So just tell us a little bit about when you were at Furman and when you graduated from Furman.
I graduated in 2005 with a degree in vocal performance. And uh, I should I just talk about why I chose Furman?
Sure, absolutely.
um, it definitely was because of the reputation of the music program. And I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and a couple of my mentors in high school had gone to Furman, and my high school choir director and one of my church choir directors. And so they recommended that I look into that program, and it instantly became my top choice. I did early decision. I was very excited.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and when I got to Furman, I knew I wanted to pursue opera. I knew I wanted to major in vocal performance, but I also wanted to study religion and consider some other career paths. I wasn't exactly sure, which I think is great, and I highly recommend. Don't be sure. There's no need to be sure at 18 or 19 of what your career path is. So I was interested in the fact that you would get a liberal arts education at Furman as well. And both of my mentors had also recommended this program that at the time was called Church Related Vocations.
Hmm.
And it was a program run by the chapel staff and the chaplains. And they've since changed the name because they didn't want it to be so focused on church or one specific religion. It's sort of about exploring career paths in the field of ministry and service. And the neat thing about this program is that you don't have to be a religion major to participate. If you have an interest in those career paths, then you can sort of apply. And that was one of the most valuable experiences for me at Furman, was being in that program because each year you did an internship, a different internship. Some of them were prescribed by the program, and then others you would choose. And I did 1 year working at the emergency room as like
Wow.
a volunteer chaplain in the emergency room. That was incredible, very eye opening, intense, but such a valuable experience that I've carried with me my whole life. And then I did 1 year at the homeless shelter and a year at the chapel, and then another year you could select something. So I chose a church and got involved with the college ministry program. But um, those those experiences gave me some real world, experience, very eye opening in each of them, and it really helped me kind of decide what I wanted to do. And I was able to do all of that while being a music major. Um, Instead of being a double major, which a lot of people did, but that wasn't for me because I was sort of getting these experiences while being a voice major.
Yeah, I didn't remember that you had done that. Um, but a lot of our music students do that program now, and are involved in that, and I think it's a great thing. And then, like you said, a lot of people double major, so they can kind of explore a lot of options. That's one thing that's so great about Furman, and that's one thing that we talk about with new students as they're coming in. Like, do you have other interests? I have students who are like filmmakers, and I have students that are philosophy majors and
That's great.
communications
I love
majors.
that.
So, but love singing. I have elementary education majors that are like some of my best singers. So, it's really we have a wide variety in our program, and it's really really great. It's something that's unique about Furman, for sure.
Yeah.
So many schools, if you go to a state school that's not liberal arts, kind of puts you on a path, and it's very kind of ironclad, and you have all these classes that you have to take to
Right.
graduate, and there's not that flexibility to learn and study. So one thing I talk about, I teach our freshman voice topics class, and one thing I always talk about with them is even within the music major. You come in thinking one thing. I came in thinking I was going to be a high school music teacher, and I figured out early on that I didn't want to do that, and ended up changing to voice performance. And I knew I wanted to teach on the college level, and here I am. But my path to get from there, where I decided that I wanted to be a college voice teacher, to like now, last year joining the faculty here, and I taught at another college before this, but to getting to there was not what I would have expected or predicted or at all. So that's one thing I stress to them is, find what you find interesting within the career, and kind
Yeah.
of pursue that, and you never know where your path is going to take you, and some of the people that I know that have had the most success in this, we know how crazy this career is, have made their own opportunities and done unique things that made them stand out, that opened other doors for them and kind of led them to where they are. So you were a voice performance major here, but where did you kind of go from Furman, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I tried to get involved in as many things at Furman as I could.
Yeah.
And probably one of the most impactful experiences for me was being part of the Furman Popper Players. And I started my freshman year. I was in Midsummer Night's Dream, the play version, not the opera. That would have been tough for freshmen.
Yes.
um, and then I got more involved in the next year. We did Guys and Dolls, and I was the choreographer and assistant director. And then the next year, I was the director, and we did Fiddler on the Roof. And this experience was maybe one of the most significant for me at Furman. I had directed a play in high school, so I knew I was interested in directing, but directing Fiddler was the first full main stage production with orchestra. And
Big
I mean,
cast too.
yeah, big
That's
cast.
such a great
And
show. I love that show.
it was so much fun and it was a real challenge. And I remember that opening night very well because I knew that I'd found my thing.
Hmm.
It was so rewarding. And so after that, I started working with our opera workshop professor and saying, I think I want to pursue directing. What are your thoughts? And they were so generous and encouraging and supportive and said, well, let's create some opportunities for you. So I think the next semester, I co directed the scenes program in opera workshop. And then my senior year, I directed a one-act opera, and we did two one-acts. So the professor did one, and I did one. And I don't know that they'd done that before in the music department, but that was incredible because I had an opera on my resume, and that prepared me for grad school because I knew by then I wanted to find a grad program for opera directing, and there were a few in the country, but I didn't know a lot about them. So actually, what our professor did was called up another alumni, David Hawley, who teaches at UNCG,
Hmm.
and asked him, do you know what graduate programs there are for opera directing? What would you recommend? And he pointed me towards Florida State and said there are some others, but that one you really get a lot of hands-on experience. And he was right. I'm so thankful for his recommendation because I got a ton of directing experience there that really prepared me for the real world. So that's where
You're,
it started.
you're gonna die, but I was cleaning out my closet the other week and going through things, and I found like some old photo books.
Uh-oh.
And I have this, I'll like scan it
No!
and put it on the screen so everybody can see it. But I have this picture of you and I from Marriage of
Oh,
Figaro,
wow.
which I think you assisted on that too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
was Marcellina, but also the assistant director, which was interesting. I think I enjoyed the assistant directing part much more than being in it. That was a big clue to me.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so funny. I remember your aria really well because it was so good. And I was just on stage, like walking in circles around you. And I don't remember anything I sang. Your aria was great.
Yeah, that was a fun show. So, what are some of the biggest challenges? So, you're a stage director now. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest challenge was try finding where to start, how
Right.
to launch.
Right.
Like I mentioned, I had great mentors through college that pointed me in the right direction. I had a fantastic graduate school experience, but then after that, what to do next? I mean,
Right.
that's a tough question, and so it took me a little while. That first year at a grad school, I fell back on every skill that I had learned at Furman. In the first 2 years out of grad school, I taught at three universities as an adjunct professor. I had a voice studio at one of like 20 students, ridiculous. And then I had, but I was teaching opera workshop at all three, and then
Right.
some music lecture courses at one of them, and just driving all around town. I was in Nashville. So I was driving all around Nashville every day, teaching at three schools. I was singing in the Nashville Opera Chorus, and I had a church gig. So I really was using every skill that I learned,
Right.
teaching students how to read music and all of the above. So I did that for a couple of years, and I'm so glad that I did because I got more directing experience at the collegiate level, but I needed that few more years of experience. And then I decided that I really wanted to pursue working in the industry as opposed to academia. So um, I went to an arts job fair, and all these opera companies were there, and they were hiring mostly technical and production staff. So I had to kind of like pull that card, and I had some experience stage managing, and I got a job at a summer festival in New Jersey as like a assistant stage manager. But working there in that role helped me to meet a lot of people in the industry and open a lot of doors. And then that following year, I had worked the entire year at different opera companies as a stage manager. So I had to do a job that, I wasn't, that was never my intention to be a stage manager. But sometimes you have to use whatever skills you have to get yourself in the room. And then once I was in the room, I could tell my colleagues, I'm interested in being a stage director, and eventually they start to help you open those doors and find your way. So I stage managed a few years, assistant directed a few years, and then people know you and trust you, and you start to get your own work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's to me has been one of the biggest lessons in my career is just networking and what to do to kind of make the right connections and open, it may not, like you said, it may not be my dream opportunity, but I might take it because I know the people there are going to open other doors for me.
Yeah.
And that has been one of the biggest things. And I guess, you talked about the CRV earlier and everything like that. Those kind of experiences at Furman, probably working with in different environments with, a variety of individuals and kind of in those kind of experiences probably gave you some of the skills that you needed to kind
Yeah,
of
that emergency room
to
experience.
thrive when you got thrown in, kind of thrown in the big arts ocean, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't change that for anything. You know, since then, I've been like a guest instructor at some conservatories and worked with some really talented students there. But I see the difference. They're missing out on that liberal arts education and some of that world sort of global citizen training that I
Yeah.
think is so important. The religion courses and the political science courses that I took at Furman had a huge impact on who I am and the art that I make. And I think if you want to be an artist, you shouldn't keep your head in the sand and say, I only study music. I don't want to hear about anything else. And that was really tempting as an undergraduate student.
Right.
You feel so much pressure. I'm a vocal performance major and I have to be perfect, and music is all that matters to me. And so I'm only going to focus on that, but I think that really doesn't serve you down the road.
Hmm.
Um, you know, even now, like during this pandemic, I've been taking courses in business management and arts strategy and arts administration. And I'm not planning a career move. It's just, I think that you want to kind of have an understanding of the environment around you and how you fit into that. And that's both from a business perspective, but also just as a global citizen, as an artist. Who is your audience? Who are you communicating to? Where are they coming from? What is their lived experience? These are important things to consider. So, whether you're a singer or whatever path you choose, to me, all of that experience was extremely valuable. I think back on, in particular, some of the religion courses I took at Furman, and they just completely shifted my way of thinking. So I love that. I love that experience.
Yeah, and I mean, especially as an opera director, I mean, you're always looking at source materials and digging into, who these characters are and everything, and having that broader perspective, I'm sure is very, very helpful. I feel the same way. I'm very grateful that, Because I looked at other schools that would have taken me more on a conservatory path, and I could have gone that way for sure. But I'm grateful I kind of had that liberal arts kind of training and background first, and then I went on to a conservatory after that. So I kind of got the best of both worlds to kind of create myself as an artist. And I think that was really helpful. And I think especially now, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the state of education, especially like high school education. They're so from the time they're like even sometimes middle school, junior high, they're like put on certain paths, like you're in a STEM path or you're in a this path. They're kind of pigeonholed so early on, and you become so kind of focused on this one path, that I think you miss out on so much that's going to help you be successful in this world. I got out of school, and I sang for opera companies for a bunch of years, and then I started teaching on the side, and I said, hey, I can make a lot of money teaching and be a little more stable. And
Yeah.
but then I created my own studio, I created my own business, and created my own performance opportunities. I produced things. Did things, produced things with for my students. And I think if I didn't have the ability to think outside the box like that, if I'd just kind of been so laser focused on a certain kind of path, then a lot of doors that have opened for me and the way my kind of career has unfolded wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. You really, if you're
And I may
going,
have given up, I may have given up and just done something else. Like, it's so hard to make it in the arts, I
yeah,
think, as it is,
it is.
that if I had been singularly focused, I might not have made it.
You really have to develop some business skills, and whether you learn them in college or not, you have to learn them real quick
Right.
because we are entrepreneurs. We do run our own business, and that's something that I didn't realize until a few years out of school. But that's something I maybe wish I would have known a little younger,
Mhm.
um, just to learn how to think about kind of a business plan and a business strategy, because you are your own business. You have to do all of your own marketing, and networking, and those are crucial skills.
Mhm.
It would be great if you could just sing an audition and then a career would happen, but usually it's not that simple.
Yeah. Well, and you're a good example. You saw your interest and you ask for opportunities. I tell students that all the time. Bring me your questions. Bring me your ideas, because there may be things that you're interested in that I don't pick up on that we can really, you know, open up, and work on. And it's the same with me. When I was at Manhattan School, I was the assistant to the director of opera studies, and I did a lot of like production kind of background office work, and I saw the way that's a very high level position that works with people around the opera world,
Mhm.
not just in the academic world. And so I saw the networking and I learned a lot, through that experience that has really paid off for me. But it was just something I was like, hey, I need a job and this is here, and why not? I'm good at these kind of things. Let's try it out. And it taught me and opened so many doors for me that probably I would have missed out on. So,
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I think for me, like when I started at Furman, I felt like a little intimidated, and wow, some of these other students have more experience or more training than I do, and so I was a little shy. But I've always been sort of a late bloomer, and it was a couple of years into my experience, probably my junior year, I got a new voice teacher, and they just really were a fantastic cheerleader. And they said, I see potential in you. You seem to have interest in other areas besides singing. What are those interests? Let's come up with some ideas. Let's come up with some opportunities. And they helped me to get into some summer festival work, some professional work. And that really was very significant in helping me to understand what the industry was and start to create a vision of where my place in the industry might be. And I had two different professional experiences that my voice teacher kind of helped create for me. And that's special. I mean, that doesn't happen at other schools.
no.
So I really treasure that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something it didn't exist. It existed when we were here, but it didn't have a name. Now they call it the Furman Advantage, and it's something that we're really focused on and kind of giving people a, like you said, you finished school, you finished your training, and it's like, what do I do now? And so that's something that we're trying to do more and more for our students is kind of give them a guide. So I know you've been working on, you talked about taking a lot of classes right now. Obviously, there's not a lot of staged opera happening right now, unfortunately. But you've been working on a lot of other like exciting projects during this time, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of them just came up recently, actually. This is sort of stepping outside of my comfort zone, but I'm developing a virtual experience for a trade show virtual booth.
Oh,
And this is in the power industry. It's for a power product. And they had a company like build a virtual booth for them. And they said, this is really high tech and cool, but it's like kind of boring. We need to get some creatives in here to create some drama for us. And so um, they got in touch with me, and I have a team of designers. And what's kind of amazing is my lead designer on this project is actually another Furman grad who was at Furman, overlapped with me a little bit, but he
mhm.
was in the theater program. His name's Murdoch Lucas, and he's now a scenic designer for opera all over the world, and he's a professor in San Diego teaching design. And but he works with there's a software program called Unreal that is used to develop video games, and we're using that technology to develop a virtual experience for this trade show. Not something I ever imagined I would ever
That's
be
crazy.
doing. But
Yeah.
the pandemic has created really unique situations. So that's one project I'm working on. But the other thing that's a lot closer to my heart um, is this network that some of us have been developing. It's a network of upper stage directors called Balancing the Stage. And back in March, when all of the shows were closed down and canceled, a bunch of us started talking to each other on Zoom, and really just to kind of problem solve and figure out what was going on. Because, when they first closed theaters, a lot of the opera companies, they had no idea how long they would be closed. So they weren't sure if the shows were canceled or postponed until the next season. And they didn't know what to do with our contracts. And so then our union started freaking out, and the union's trying to negotiate, well, you have to pay the artist something. And the companies are saying, we don't know if we can. And then our agents started freaking out, and the agents were saying the same thing. You have to pay us something. So
Right.
the agents started meeting as a group on Zoom, which that's definitely never happened before.
Sure.
And then as stage directors, we started meeting. And from all accounts, that's never happened like in the past 100 years. Opera stage directors have never come together. But this unique situation created this need for us to support each other. And so at first we were just talking about which companies are offering some kind of a payment plan, or sending support to the artists whose shows are canceled or postponed. And after we spent a few months sort of in that emergency mindset, we sort of realized that we'd created this community, and that we had a lot of resources and expertise gathered in this room. And how could we support each other both now during the pandemic and also going forward? And so we started creating some programs. We started a mentorship program for young directors or people interested in stage directing to be paired with groups of more experienced directors. And we did that through the fall semester, and we're going to start again in the spring. And also just sharing a lot of resources about the various unions that directors can belong to and how they're different. And just sharing some of our favorite like books and movies and recordings and resources that we use in preparing for our work. And that network has been so encouraging to me. It's really felt like a lifeline in this time when I'm totally separated from all of my colleagues. So it's been a lot of fun, and we all are hoping to continue that network into the future when we go back to work.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think, that's things like that are something that's missing that, like I said, it's hard and a career in the arts is hard and it's easy to kind of fall through the cracks and lose your way, and something like that will be a good support to a lot of people, I think. And we need the connection now more than ever, for sure. So it's
Yes.
definitely, I see how that serves. I think the industry is, it's a scary time, but I think once things level out a lot, I think there are a lot of things that will be a lot better because of the time we've had to kind of think and rethink the approach that we take to things and all of that.
Yeah, one of the biggest things, shifts that I've felt is that our industry is very competitive.
Hmm.
And it's very easy to sort of get sucked into that and let it control your life. You're just thinking, I have to get the next gig and it has to be bigger and better. And you're only as good as your last show, and all these horrible things
Right.
that you repeat. And this moment of being forced to stop really causes you to take stock of what's important. And I think, in coming together with these other stage directors, we had to kind of put down the boxing gloves and stop being so competitive and realize that, we have a lot in common. We have a lot of shared interests and passions, and we should be friends and we should support each other. And there is enough work to go around.
Right.
There's always that feeling of scarcity.
Mm.
You have to get the next job, but I think that's not really true. There's actually a lot of work in the
Right.
world, and it's about being authentic as an artist. And if you can do that, then the work is going to come to you.
Right.
And that's a lesson that I've had to learn over and over again. But the pandemic is helping to sort of highlight that.
Well, and you guys having that network may create more work because it's like you're only one person and you can only take so many gigs.
Right.
And there
No,
may be other offers out there for things that you're not able to do that you can say no, but I have this friend in my network that's
yeah.
would
And
be
that
great for
happens all
this.
the time.
Right.
Companies will ask me, I mean, in one case, they'll say, "Who do you want as your assistant?" And
Right.
it's really hard to find a good assistant. You find one, and then the next day they're a director on their own. They don't want to assist anymore. I mean,
Right.
I did the same thing. So this is what happens.
Right.
And so that's one thing. Part of our mentoring program is like, how can we build up some strong
Talent. Yeah.
assistants? Yeah, some talent, and also folks who maybe have felt like they don't see a path into becoming an opera director. They haven't previously had access to that career path. We're trying to open the doors a little bit, and not have it be such a clicky, elitist, closed door system where if you don't know the right person, then you absolutely can't work here. It's like, no, there's a lot of talent out there. And if we can just give people the tools and invite them into the room, we've talked about, let's invite people into the mentoring program, give them the tools, and then invite them to come observe rehearsals so that they can be in the room and meet the right people. Because
Right.
as you said, like, networking is everything in opera, but we need to find ways to be more inclusive in what we mean by networking.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, what would current Stephanie tell Furman Stephanie if she had a chance to tell her now? I mean, you've said some things a little bit along the way, but is there like one kind of golden piece of advice that like now that you wish you could have told yourself back then?
Yeah. Travel,
Yeah.
experience other cultures.
Hmm.
You don't need to make a decision about what your life is going to be at age 20. And that's not, I don't mean that in a condescending way. You can be brilliant and creative at age 20. There's nothing about that age that, but the thing is, there's so much to experience, there's so much to see. Um, and so I would say travel, put yourself in uncomfortable situations, be in a place where you don't speak the language and learn to navigate that. One, because it's exciting and scary and challenging, but two, because then you see what it's like to be the person that doesn't speak the language. Um, I think all of that is so important before you pass any judgments on, I want my life to be this or that. Give yourself a chance to see the world before you start closing any doors, and stay curious. I would say, follow your curiosity. If you're following your curiosity, you're on the right path,
Right.
and that never stops. I tell myself that every day.
I know there's always something. I mean, that to me has been one of the gifts for me too, is I took all these like any like online master classes or like their master teachers that are doing online classes. I've signed up for so many things. I took a class through Manhattan School over the summer with like the head of the recording technology. It was just like a 1 day
Oh,
kind of 2 hour
great.
class, but I got so much good information about like setting up a home studio and filming and recording yourself at home that I've then been able to pass along to, because all of our prospective students are doing virtual auditions this year.
Wow,
So I was
yeah.
able to pass that along. It ended up being something that I could take and then share. And there's just always so much more to learn, and you
Yeah.
never stop learning. Yeah. So do you have a favorite? I know you mentioned the Fiddler on the Roof was really pivotal. Do you have a favorite like Furman memory?
Um, yeah, I mean, that's probably like my most cherished memory, but also, I don't know if you remember this, but freshman year I was on the dance team.
Oh no, I didn't remember that.
And we the dance team performs at all the football
Yeah,
games and basketball games, and yeah, and we also go to band camp, which I had done dance team in high school. That's why I started out doing that in college, but we didn't go to band camp. So um, that was a hoot. That was a riot. Yeah. There's a lot of, crazy times with that, and a lot of sequin sports bras that we had to wear on the
right.
football field. So whenever I think about that I even did that, I laugh, but it was a good time.
Yeah, yeah, but so many of those experiences kind of add up to, who we are. So
Yeah.
it's really awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was so wonderful, and I know so many people are going to find the things that you had to share with us really, really interesting.
Thanks, Craig. This was so much
Yeah,
fun. I love thinking about my Furman days.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you.